Angela Hill stopped by tonight. She's strawweight at UFC. You've been over there like 10 years from professional fighting. How many years at UFC now?
When Tough first started filming, it was, I think, the summer of 2014. And then we had our finale 2014 in December. So that was when I was officially a UFC fighter. So since then.
And you were doing like kickboxing before that?
Yeah, I was doing Muay Thai.
I see you were
it's
undefeated,
different.
16-0 kickboxer?
Yeah. I was doing Muay Thai, and then, you know, it was hard for me to get my first amateur fight in MMA because people saw my Muay Thai record and they were like, no. So eventually I just went pro in Muay Thai, and I was like, well, if MMA happens, it happens. If not, whatever. And when Ultimate Fighter came up, then I got the bright idea to just try to get an MMA fight real quick as a pro. So I didn't have an amateur career as an MMA fighter, but I was able to convince a commission in North Carolina to let me go pro anyway. And I was able to get my first MMA fight 2 days before the Tough tryouts. And I got my fight. You needed at least one. They lowered the bar. Usually it's like you need 3, I think, in order to apply for Tough. But for our weight class, since it was the first time they were doing women that small, they were like, okay, 1 fight is the qualifier, and then you kind of wanted more than that, but I was only able to get 1. And then I showed up 2 days later after I got like a knockout finish and got on the show.
So that was the first one for your weight division, the Ultimate Fighter?
Yeah. It was the 115-pound division. That was the one where they crowned Carla Esparza as champion.
Oh.
Yeah, and then I think people forget that because right after that, Joanna came onto the scene. She wasn't on the show, but she came onto the scene. She beat a couple people and then fought Carla Esparza and beat her up and won the belt.
I know Carla. Carla's been a good friend over time.
Oh, cool.
I like Carla quite a lot. I know Joanna as well. Yeah, I didn't know that she had won that at the time.
Yeah, she won the Tough, and that was the whole thing. Like when they did Tough 20, they're like, it's the season where the winner becomes champion, because that was when they were just bringing in straw weights for the first time. So whoever won the finale became a UFC champion, and I think that's the only time they ever did that.
Yeah, it makes sense though, but yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. You're part of something very unique there.
Yeah. I mean, I lost in the first round, but I'm still part of it.
Well, they haven't made my Ultimate Fighter season yet, so.
Hey, there you go.
At least some of my friends and some people I know were on it, but they haven't made one for me yet. When they make a senior citizen version, I'll be ready.
What? You're not that old.
In fighting years, I'm old.
How old?
45.
You're fine.
No, but I've only been training a few
You're
years.
just in Glover age. They need to make a season for Glover Textera and then everyone else who falls into that category.
With Glover and Arlovsky, you'll be the coaches.
There you go, yeah. Old man Tough. I think that would go off well.
Yeah, well, I don't know whose team I'll be on, because both of them have become friends. Actually, Glover was supposed to train with me last week.
Okay.
But then Alex ended up taking this fight.
Oh.
And for the main event tomorrow. And Glover trains with me a lot. Like every 3 months, he'll stop over and spend half a week with me.
So you do a lot of jiu-jitsu or MMA, or what do you do?
My grappling's better than my striking, but
Okay.
I get a brown belt under Jake Shields in jiu-jitsu.
Nice.
So
I just saw Jake at Power Slap.
nice.
Yeah, he was one of the coaches there on Tough 20. You should watch it.
Jake was one of the coaches on Ultimate Fighter? I
Yeah,
didn't know
because
that.
he was there with Team Melendez. And I was on.
I got you.
Yeah, I was on Gilbert Melendez's team, and
Gotcha.
so I got to like train with Jake, with Nate Diaz, with Crone Gracie, like a lot of just like legends. I got to train with those guys when I was on there.
Oh, Gilbert's a nice guy.
He's awesome.
Yeah, he's a very good speaker.
Yeah.
He's got his ESPN gig, but he's a very good speaker and good person.
Yeah, he's my favorite of all the coaches on the show.
Nate's always very nice to me. Nate's invited me to numerous times, come do this and come do that.
Nice.
But there's always 20 people, It's
Well, yeah,
the introvert part of my brain.
it's like if you're going to a Nate Diaz party, you're going to be part of an entourage.
Fact.
You might get in a fight. So you got to be prepared.
Makes sense. I see it one time we randomly ran into each other, out in the street in society, and I didn't even recognize him. I was just, minding my business, and I'm always in my own mind doing my own things, and he's like, "Oh, Moneyberg, blah blah," and I immediately looked around, like, where's everybody else? Because there's always 15, 20 people deep wherever he goes,
Okay.
But any case, I mentioned to you when you came here that I was at your last fight. I sat right in front. Your family was nearby, just off on the side, and you looked damn good.
Thanks.
And you're not a senior citizen like myself, but you're
I'm almost
still
there,
in the
though.
decade before then. But
I'm 5 years behind you, man.
how much are you still improving? You got a lot of years in MMA. You've done very good. You fought a lot of the toughest people. Got wins against many of them, and you think you feel like you're still growing significantly over time? Your brain's engaged, your body's engaged. You want to do this?
I think so. I think I kind of hit a weird stride where I found a new path to take. Like I had put myself in, and I kind of said it in my post-fight speech, I put myself in this like striker box for such a long time, and I just tried to be a good striker for MMA, kind of like a Joanna, where she didn't really go to the ground ever on purpose. She just wanted to keep it in her realm. And then eventually I realized that I like to grapple. Like I enjoy it. A lot of wrestling reminds me of clinch that you do in Muay Thai. And then once I start learning something, jiu-jitsu is kind of nice because it feels more merit-based when you find successes like in the gym and against other people. I feel like in jiu-jitsu is more likely that the person who's been training 2 days beats the person who trains 1 day, if you know what I mean. And I feel like with striking, it's not like that. There's a lot more left to chance, and it's a lot harder to set things up in striking. But in jiu-jitsu, it's all about just being better. And so I started falling in love with that part of it. I started falling in love with wrestling and the whole grappling aspect. And I feel like being a more complete fighter has allowed me to increase my MMA lifespan, if that makes sense. Like if I just stood and banged with everyone in my last 3 years of fighting, I'd probably have a lot more scars. I'd probably be a lot more punch drunk, But because I started evolving and trying new things, I feel like I've been able to just be a much better fighter all around, much more dangerous, much more unpredictable. And I think in my first maybe 5-6 years in the UFC, I was just going on this path of, okay, I just got to keep it standing. I just have to sprawl and brawl. And it shut off a lot of avenues where I knew I was good at certain things, but I just wasn't doing them in the fight.
I know you won your last fight by submission. Did they say that was your first submission victory?
First submission in MMA ever. And first submission in the UFC.
Wow.
Yeah. So that felt really good because I've definitely put in the mat time since I got into the UFC, but there's been a difference. Like when I first started fighting, every time we would get a matchup, we'd say, keep it standing. Keep it standing, work on your sprawls. And it's like, well, I'm doing all this work on the mats. I'm doing all this work learning submissions and learning grappling moves and learning how to take people down. Why am I not using it? So I finally decided to take matters into my own hand and say, hey, I want to take this girl down. I know she's a grappler, but I want to take her down. And that just opened up so much more when it came to fighting and being in the moment and not trying to force something that isn't there.
Maybe you have a different perspective of this, but like my training, which has been, not as long as yours, but in grappling, I felt like the first year I just got like beat up by smaller people.
Yeah.
Which doesn't feel good if you're like a big man. Like that doesn't really feel good to your brain, Like it hurts your ego a little bit.
I can imagine.
So you got to be like, try to put that aside and be like, all right, if I keep at this, I'll get better. And so first year you just get beat up. But then you get tired of getting beat up certain ways and, choked and twisted and whatnot. And then be like, all right, I'm going to learn to defend this, going to learn to defend. And you spend a couple weeks on this thing and 2 months on that thing. And, Derek Brunson came over the first time I trained with him.
Oh,
we
fun.
spent like 3 days together, and he'd get me in all the front headlock positions of, the Darcy, Anaconda, guillotine, and might as well just cycle through them. And he'd just get me again and again. And I was so
Were
frustrated.
you like turning like this afterwards?
I wasn't turning at all for me. Shout out to Derek, good for you. But and I was never mad at him, but I was mad. I'm sure you know that feeling.
It's frustrating.
I'm not mad at him. Like he's doing what he's supposed to do, but I was like frustrated about it. I was like, like when he comes back here, we're not doing that shit again. And I intentionally scheduled like, you come back in like 3 months. And he's like, yeah, whatever, and all right. But I worked on that for like 11 weeks of defending those positions. And even in that short a time, 3 months later, I tightened that up a lot. Not he messed me up a different way now.
It's like, okay, I'll take it back now.
That's fine. But now we gotta do something different. But you tighten that up, and you tighten up the next thing and the next thing. And I felt like, I learned a lot of the offensive positions from learning how to defend so many things. That, you find you can do a little drilling of offense, this, that, do this, do that, But I feel like I really learned those or ingrained them in learning the little micro nuances of like how a bunch of UFC people were tormenting me, and so Glover would choke me one way, and Derek would choke me a different way, and Gilbert would choke me a different way, and Jake Shields would do some other shit to you,
Yeah.
So you had to learn a lot of different, macro strategies and then the micro nuances of how different people apply that. And that I felt like I learned a lot from that. That like after my defense was good, I felt a lot more confident in my offense to go, attack things, and then you give people a harder time that when they know that they have offense, they have to be on defense, then they can't be on their offense as much, and so on,
Yeah.
But I felt like I learned a lot of things, relatively quickly, just from all the ways, all the things that you would have had to defend as well, and no doubt were, getting very good at those defensive things. But you think you just weren't applying the offensive side of it as much because you felt just more confident in your striking, or how were you thinking about that?
Yeah, well, I felt like I wanted to attack things, but I didn't have the confidence in it. Like I knew I was getting better at stuff, but at the same time, if I took someone's back, I was gonna posture up and punch him in the face. I wasn't gonna, punch him in the side of the head. I wasn't gonna try to sink my hooks in and get my arm around their neck and choke them out, which is the easier solution, especially when you're a little smaller. It's harder to get those knockouts. So I was always going to the thing that seemed easier when the actual easier path was just something I was a little uncomfortable with.
Did you ever break your hands, or is that not much of a thing?
No, I've never broken my hands. I broke my thumb once, or I didn't even know what it was. I tore like a ligament in my thumb punching a guy, and I had big gloves on too. But I was punching this little flyweight guy that I trained with who didn't even feel it, and somehow in big gloves I tore a ligament in my thumb, and I couldn't do a thumbs up for like 4 months. But I've never broken my hand other than that.
I was thinking about the head strikes or whatnot, and just thinking through if you're hitting somebody in the head a lot, maybe a higher probability of an injury like that.
Yeah, no, it was never injury that I was worried about. I was always just worried about getting put on my back, getting stuck, and losing a decision. Gotcha. Or the couple times that I got submitted, just worried about something like that happening. But one thing I always did was focus really hard on my weaknesses when it came to defense, but I always overlooked the offense because for whatever reason I decided I wasn't a good grappler and that wasn't going to be my path to victory. So I think in the last maybe 3 or 4 years, I kind of stopped putting myself down in that category and realizing, oh, hey, I'm a strong athlete everywhere. I have the mental capacity to be a good grappler. I have the physical capacity to be a good grappler. I just need to believe in it. And then once I changed my way of thinking, I feel like even in my last what was it? I fought Lupi Godinez, and that was one of those fights where everyone was like, "Oh, she's gonna." I think I was a plus 500 underdog or something ridiculous like that. And everyone's like, "Oh, she's just gonna sit on her and get a decision sitting on her, out wrestling her," and I was the one that took her down more in that fight. So I think just changing my mindset and saying, "Hey, you're just as good as these girls. These girls are coming in way less experienced. They just believe in themselves. If you believed in yourself, imagine how good you'd be." And so that's that mental switch kind of propelled me and allowed me to continue to look like I was getting better, even though I was just showing what I've been working on the whole time that I was too afraid to do on fight day.
I know you won that fight with Lupi, and she looks pretty talented to me. She looks very talented to
Yeah,
me. Like, she's a pretty strong girl, too, yeah?
And her whole family is wrestlers. I think she has a sister or two sisters that are on the Olympic wrestling team. So her whole family's wrestlers. And I was just, it took so much to tell myself I was a better wrestler than her. I don't know if I actually believed it until I got that first takedown, but I had to tell myself, "You're better than her," even though everyone else was telling me otherwise. And, it helped that my coaches believed in me too. I think that was the thing that got me over the edge, where before, if my coach was like, "I don't know, maybe we should keep it standing," then I totally believe in that. So I think kind of changing the people around me too, getting people who not only coached me well, but believed in the things that I was doing well in the gym and actually saw what I was doing well in the gym. I think that really helped me get over that hump.
Have you stayed with the same coaching team a long time, or did you move around and pick up different things at different places? Or what was your philosophy, your process for optimizing your situation?
So when I moved out to San Diego, I started training with Alliance MMA. And then eventually Alliance MMA kind of dispersed. We went through, once I got there, we probably changed locations once a year. And then eventually it just stopped being a thing. Now the head coach, Eric Del Fiero, he's out in Mexico City at the PI. So in that whole process, I kind of had to figure out the best way for me to get through a fight camp. And when I was at Alliance, it was good because they showed me how to run a fight camp. These are the things that you need to do. You need to train twice a day. You need to be working on this thing and this thing. You need to have this many wrestling sessions a week, that type of thing. This many strength and conditioning sessions a week. So I got a good baseline for what a fight camp looks like when I was there, and that was maybe 4 or 5 years that I was at Alliance MMA. But then after that, I had to start looking at what I needed specifically. And I think that's where a lot of MMA fighters are going. They're starting to look at what they need specifically, and they're going away from the big gym model. Like we had Alliance, we had Jackson Wink, we had Top Team and Alpha Male, all these big gyms that just made training like a factory. Like everyone does wrestling, everyone does jiu-jitsu, everyone does striking, and then everyone goes and fights. But I think now, especially after people started figuring out how to do their fight camps more like a boxer, where you have your coaches that are specifically there for you. You have your training partners that are specifically there for you. And every training session is kind of geared towards the fight that you have coming up. And then when you're not in that, you can do more team training sessions where you're in the mix with a big group and just working on general skills. But I think it's important to focus on the things that you need to get better at in order to get good as fast as possible.
That makes a lot of sense. I haven't heard anybody explain it quite like that, but it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I mean, it's what boxers have done for forever, and that's the oldest, most lucrative martial arts prize fighting thing that exists. So it's good to take examples from that, you know. And MMA is so much more complex when it comes to what makes a good fighter. There's so many more variables that it's important. I think the fighters that are doing that, you can see it in the results. The fighters that are piecemeal and everything and making sure the focus is on them, you can definitely see a difference in their performance once they start doing that.
What are some of your highlights or lowlights over time of either actual things or emotional turmoils that were either very good or difficult that you had to get past to do as well as you're doing today?
Man, I've had so many.
I can tell that to have the the amount of wins and over some of the people that you have, then there had to be some not just those good times, but some highs that you were like, hell yeah, I did that.
Yeah.
And some other ones were like, wow, this is a rough day. I gotta go think about this.
There's been so many rough days. Like, I do feel really lucky to still be in the UFC because I've had so many losses. And I think what sets me apart from other people in my situation is that I always go out there and I try to put on an amazing fight. Like I've never fought cautious. I've always tried to just go out there and go out on my shield, whether I felt confident in the fight or not. But there's been a lot of ups and downs. Like when I got onto the show, that was a huge up. I had one pro fight, I had one MMA fight, and I got on tough. And I was just showing up to network. I was just like, hey, maybe I'll meet Dana White. That'd be cool. And then I ended up getting on the show, So that was a huge up. That was a huge confidence boost. But then when I'm in the house and we're cut off from all the internet, I can't talk to anyone on the phone. Like they totally shut us off from the outside world. And I lose my first fight. It was the first time I ever lost in my fighting career, was on national TV. And then I couldn't talk to anybody about it. Like that was so hard for me. Like I didn't know any of the girls on the show. I couldn't call a psychiatrist or anything. I couldn't talk to the producers about it. I was there by myself, and I had my little journal, and I wrote in my journal how sad I was, and that's all you could really do. And then
some asshole you don't know what a camera comes to capture your sadness.
I know, they're like filming me crying and writing in my journal. Like, off, like that. It was tough. And then when you get off the show, you can't tell anyone what happened. I could tell the people who I trusted they wouldn't blab and get me sued, but you signed the non-disclosure agreement, so I couldn't tell any of my training partners. I couldn't tell, random family members. So everyone was like, I bet you won the whole thing. And I'm like, you'll have to wait and see. And it just sucks, You have to live through that twice. And it was the first time I ever lost. So that was a really rough time. But at the same time, it made me extremely resilient. And I see these fighters who come on in because of their skill, because of luck, because of matchups, they just blow it out of the park every time they fight. And then they get that one loss and it destroys them. And I feel like that's never been me, because I had that loss so early on in my MMA career, and I learned how to deal with it really early on. And I've never let a loss change how I thought about myself.
What do you think is the difference in psychology there? That one of the biggest female stars ever in MMA sort of fits that profile. That was very successful till she wasn't, and then seemed like she had a difficult time dealing with that in the aftermath. What do you think makes the difference of somebody that's more resilient, that can find their way through that, versus that person?
I don't know, man, because I think everyone deals with it differently. And with Ronda Rousey, that she's felt loss in judo. And a lot of times she was in the Olympics. That can feel a lot bigger than MMA was at that point. Like Olympics was huge. Female MMA was kind of a sideshow, freak show thing when she started doing it. By the time she won, or by the time she lost, rather, it was more established. So yeah, it's hard to say because she got so high so quick. She was on all the talk shows. She was in movies.
Yeah.
She was just doing a lot really quickly. So I feel like because I didn't really get that high before I felt that low, maybe the juxtaposition of the high and low wasn't so dramatic that it just destroyed me. And one thing that my very first Muay Thai coach told me, because I was undefeated as long as I was training with him, he was always worried about what was going to happen to me when I got my first loss. And once he told me, I think he was drunk when he told me this, but once he told me, man, I kind of wish you lost already, just so we could get it out the way, because it helps when you get it early on. You learn how to deal with it, and even when you get on that bigger stage and it means more, at least you already have the baseline of emotional tools to deal with a loss.
Yeah, I think I was having a conversation with another friend recently about the Aranda and a current fighter that we were discussing, and as a business person, I think like there's got to be a tough decision that you to do the training to have the success you're having, and by the time if you ever have that huge success, that the hype that was behind Ronda at that time, then you get a lot of opportunities. There's plenty of business opportunities that come do this talk show, come on, film this commercial, do this Hollywood shit, do this other, promote this thing, and there's a lot of money from that. You make more money from that than you can make from your fighting, Yeah. And there must be a difficult thing where you got a target on your back, and you're the person that everybody wants to take down, and you're going to either keep doing the monotonous, kind of boring things that have made you successful, or be like, oh, I'm doing good. Let me go get this money over here and that money over there, and that's a fun opportunity. So I imagine that's a difficult decision to make, but when I see people starting to do that, I'm like, they're going to be able to keep that performance up. And if you're spending too much time on TV and spending too much time hanging out with, other people socially.
Yeah, when you're comfortable.
I would love, if I had to do what you're doing, I would love to see my opponent, hanging out with the politicians of their country and some other celebrities, and now they're filming a commercial and they're doing that instead of being in the gym, and be like, oh shit, this is my chance.
Yeah, because I mean, you're in this world, so you know how time consuming that stuff is. You can't train 4 hours a day, twice a day, if you're shooting commercials in the same day, if you're socializing with celebrities and all that stuff. Like that takes a lot of time. That's work too. It's exhausting as well. I didn't train at all since I've been in Vegas, and I'm done. I'm like, it's a lot to get yourself gussied up, to get your outside personality on, and just go and schmooze. So even though it's not as physically taxing, it's still mentally taxing, and I think it's hard to do both. Like you're either in it or you're not.
And the time consumption.
Yeah. Like to do a full day of media, to do a full day of partying, and then wake up in the morning and go run and go to wrestling, go do the hard stuff. That sucks. You wouldn't last. You wouldn't be getting the same quality of training that you would be if you were just sleeping and eating and training.
I say this half jokingly and half seriously, but something's wrong with me, and I'm a person who can't just like be content. I got to be doing something and have a project, and so I did very well financially over time, and there was a time in my life where I was overweight, and but I made a lot of money, and I felt really good about that. And I was like, all right, what do you want to do? Like, you can kind of do whatever you want. What would you like to do with the time you have left, you know? And I'm going to go make more money. I love money, and I love money.
Is that what this is about? All the money you made?
No, I run a business where I have 3 mentoring programs that people go through. So one's about entrepreneurship, of how to start a business and get away from your job, and one's about investing in real estate, and one's about investing in the stock market. And I did all of those things, and I did them legitimately very well. That, like, I see there's kids on the internet say, I made $1 million doing some niche bullshit that you can't possibly replicate, and I'm like, all right, but I started making money when I was 7. I'm 45. I started making my first entrepreneurial money, like, doing kid shit, but I was already thinking about that as a small child,
same.
And so it's only 38 years later that, but people talk about they did whatever it be in business, and I don't run any get rich quick anything. It's like as boring, as dull. You're going to work hard. My clients are going to hate it. I tell them all that up front. This is the worst marketing possible, to tell them, hey, you're going to work really hard, and you're not going to get rich quick, and but you're going to learn a lot of things that, if you apply them, you're going to make a lot of money over time.
Hey, it sounds like you're pitching an MMA career right now.
That's what it is.
That's what it is.
No, but that's what it is.
You're going to work really hard. You're not going to make shit for a long time, but eventually it'll pay off.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite literally. So, so you don't get people that are, kind of flighty. My clients are, intelligent people. Most of them went to college. A lot of them went to graduate school. They were already successful at something, and they understand what it takes to work and produce something. The same as that anything really significant in life is not going to happen overnight. Like, you're going to go put in your work and pay your dues, and that's what it is.
Nice.
So those are the type of people that I want to work with. It's quite the opposite about everything else on the internet.
Yeah.
And that saying, that choose to conquer, is like, I think success is a lifestyle choice. That a lot of people love their excuses. That I can't do it because of this. I can't. I would be successful, but my dad said mean words to me growing up, or whatever bullshit people tell themselves.
Yeah.
And I'm like, all right, but I had plenty of problems. You had plenty of problems, and everybody else that accomplished anything did. So I just think it's a lifestyle choice that you could focus on that, and allow your excuses to give you some solace. I suppose you could talk to other losers and share your excuses with each other, or you could go do the shit that's necessary to have good results.
Yeah, so I think there's definitely a lot of luck involved in success, but I think you can counterbalance that with hard work, for sure. Because like I said,
the more I worked, the luckier I got.
Well, that's what I mean.
The more I've been training jiu-jitsu, the less I've been getting choked by those guys.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, I feel very lucky that I didn't get cut after, however many losses. I never got, I think the worst it was, I don't know if I had 3 in a row or not, but like, you can get cut off of a win in the UFC. So I always feel lucky about that. But I know the reason that I stayed above water and the reason that I continued to win after a loss was because of hard work. And especially after a loss, I'd be in the gym Monday. As long as I wasn't injured, I was in the gym Monday asking questions to my coaches, like, how do I not let this happen again? How do I get better? I'm pretty famous for having like a bunch of split decision losses, a bunch of robberies, and I didn't just complain about the robberies. Like, I'll complain about it on social media or whatever, but in the gym on Monday, I'm saying, how do I not let this happen again? How do I get closer to a finish? How do I dominate my opponent so that there's no question of who won that round or not? And I think a lot of times when people criticize me, they criticize, the complainer or whatever. But I'm in the gym, I'm in the lab, and I'm working on getting better, and I'm working 100 times more than anyone who would criticize me online or whatever. So I always felt that way. Like, yeah, you have to acknowledge the luck involved, but luck is only one small part of the whole picture. You know, like if you work hard, you can get rid of that luck a lot. It's like I play a lot of RPGs and
I don't know what an RPG is.
role playing games.
Okay.
And with role playing games, it's kind of like a dice game where you build up your stats to a certain point, but there's always that 1% chance that you mess up. So if you build up your guillotine defense to 100, there's always that 1% chance that someone's still gonna get a guillotine on you because they rolled the right number on the dice and you didn't. So there's always that luck aspect involved, but you can't let that deter you from working hard. And I think that's what you're talking about. Like a lot of people allow being born in a certain family, being born in a certain demographic, and they allow that to dictate the rest of their success, the rest of their life. And there are ways to just work hard to get rid of the negatives that something like that can cause you in life.
I find it like cruelly insulting when somebody says to me, "He's like, oh, you got lucky," or it's like, "Oh, you're so lucky. You're so lucky." It's like, you didn't see me, you didn't see all the things that happened early on. You didn't see the things, you didn't see that first 20 years. You didn't see the times that I didn't have food to go to sleep as a child. You didn't see the times when the power was turned off when I was a kid. You didn't see when the phones were turned off because my parents couldn't pay the phone bill. Or, they don't see 30 other things, And everybody's got their story. They got their story, you got your story. So they're gonna see that shit, but they're gonna say later, oh man, you must feel so lucky. Oh, you're so lucky to have blah blah blah. Oh, that's a nice Rolls Royce you got there. You're so lucky. So do you know what the I had to do to get that car?
Yeah.
Do you know what I had to do to even get my Maybach before I got my Rolls Royce? Do you know what I had to do to get my 11,000 square foot place? Like, so I'm not saying that to you, obviously, but when I hear somebody say that about your profession, of like, oh, they got lucky, and like, you only practiced 25 years. You only practiced 25 years before you got lucky. So I don't mean to object to what you're saying in the sense that, like, there's an element of truth to that. But to somebody that hears that and think that luck is going to get you a high level outcome in life, you can get lucky once in a while. Like, you were about to step off that curb, but and get hit by the bus, but you pulled back for a second and you go, oh shit, I got lucky. I almost got hit by that bus. So do those moments happen? Yeah, but I'd rather have skills than like win a lottery or something. Like, you can make more money in real life with your skills than lottery winners tend to give it all back, mess it up. So, I would never say it to one of my fighter friends, like, oh, good luck tomorrow.
Yeah. I always try to say good skill instead of good luck. It's my little thing because I hate that. I hate it personally. But
you're Invicta champion, yeah?
Yeah, I won the Invicta belt. So when I got cut from UFC,
did you win it or did you earn it? Did you get lucky and win it like a bingo game?
I mean, it was a split decision,
or did you
so
earn
we
it?
could say it was luck. It was more luck than I've had in the UFC.
How much practice did you do to get so lucky?
Oh, so much practice.
Could a normal person walk off the street and get that lucky without training like you did?
No, the girl was a beast. But yeah, I think when people say luck, I think they think of it in different ways.
Yeah, that's all that's happening.
Yeah, for me, I just think of, like, when you think of a multiverse, a lot of times luck can just mean a different path that you could have taken that you didn't. And maybe you'd be happier in this path. Maybe you'd be less successful in this path. But it's all just a matter of what comes together in those crucial moments.
I'm not poking at you or trying to play a semantics game with you about the luck word, but somebody out there is going, oh, I just need to get lucky. And they're going to forget all the training part.
No,
and I'm not being fussy with you. I'm being fussy with that
You know
person.
what I'm talking, when I say luck, I'm talking about being unlucky. Like, I'm lucky to not be unlucky when it comes to not getting cut from the UFC again. I was unlucky to get cut from the UFC after 2 losses, which wasn't as normal at the time, but super normal now. And I just feel like when bad things happen to you, it's easy to lay down and let the bad thing just dictate the rest of your life. And I think the bad thing happening to you a lot of times is just having bad luck. But you can work yourself out of it if things work out for you, if you're determined. I don't think it's just, I've seen so many people who are hard workers in the gym and it just never comes together. And I think that's why I go on this luck thing so hard, because I see people who are hard workers, who are talented. It's not just about working hard. Sometimes it's about having that natural gift. And I see a lot of people with that. And for whatever reason, they don't have the right connections. They never get the right opportunities. They don't get the win that means a lot, that would have propelled them to the next level. And so that's why I think when I talk about luck is more me being grateful that what I did actually worked out, and now I can afford houses, now I can have a family if I wanted to, I have a husband now, but if I wanted to have a kid, they'd be all right. They wouldn't be, not eating, or I'd have the electricity on if I had a kid. And that is not the case for a lot of, for an MMA fighter, that's not always the case. So yeah, I think when I'm talking about luck, I'm talking about being grateful for my path and the fact that my hard work paid off, because it doesn't always happen.
Yeah.
In MMA, at least.
Yeah, I mean, not everybody can be champion, There's 12 slots on the whole roster to be champion.
Yeah, and I'm not champion by any means. Like maybe one day. I'm still hopeful about it, but my success doesn't hinge on that. And I think that was another thing that changed my success, is not just being so driven. Oh, I have to be champion, otherwise I'm worthless. That messes you up so much when you get those big fights, when you get those big opportunities, and you're like, if I don't win this, it's over. And then you lose it, and you're like, now what? So it's like, yeah, I had the determination after I lost, but in the moment, it was hard to get over that hump because I put so much weight on that moment.
I think... when I'm just thinking of other comments I've heard people make about you, or thoughts that I've had. I've seen a couple of your fights live, seen a couple of your fights on TV, and you other girls that I've spent time with that you competed against. Michelle trains with me with her husband Josh sometimes. Claudia is my best female friend. So she's great. So everybody speaks about you with a lot of respect, like.
Yay.
No, but
I wasn't sure. I'm like, do they? Cool.
I always hear people speak about you respectfully, like, even your opponents are not thinking like, oh, this is going to be an easy day for me or something.
Yeah.
They know they're going to, all right, I better be prepared. So, I hear you talk about some losses, but, I like to focus on people's successes more honestly, but even people that you competed against and it didn't work out for you that day still had like a lot of respect that they better be well prepared, that they're not going to have a easy day,
Nice.
So that's the impression that I have of you, or the reputation that I hear from other fighters, or when I've seen you fight, I'm just like, when you won your last fight, I don't want to bring this topic up again. Sorry, but when you won your last fight, it didn't occur to me that girl got lucky. I thought to myself, she didn't put in work.
Yeah.
She was serious. She was well prepared. She's been putting in work.
And you know what? I was surprised I didn't see that much too. Like I thought for sure people were gonna be like, oh, she got lucky. That girl just made a big mistake and paid for it. But no, people were very, very complimentary of my grappling after that. They were just like, dang.
Looked like good.
Angela leveled up.
I got to get that girl over here to do an interview with me. I thought.
And here I am. Yeah.
What are some of the other elements that you think that you've observed or you think to be true about other people, like the ones that make it and the ones that don't? Of the psychology of what are the variables you can control that helped you be more successful? That other people, maybe they couldn't find it in them to do those things, or maybe didn't have the discipline to show up on Monday, like you said, or things of that nature.
I mean, you hit the nail on the head right there. consistency, discipline. You see, there's a lot of fighters making headlines for not making weight. That's an easy thing to control when you're. I mean, I don't want to crap on Ortega because it was short notice, but when you have someone like Gastelum who had all the time to prepare and then he misses weight by that much, it's a little embarrassing because fighters take most fighters take their position so seriously, the ability to just show up, make weight. That's your only contractual obligation, to show up and to make weight. And if you can't do that, then it shows you lack discipline, and you're probably lacking discipline in other areas. Like, you're not going to the class that's going to help you get better at your weakness. You're not putting yourself in uncomfortable positions. That's another thing. When I see training partners in the gym, they lose a fight in a certain way, and then let's say they get out grappled, they don't go with the person who's gonna out grapple them when they're back in the gym. You know what I mean? They never go back and wrestle with Gilbert Burns or Derek Brunson. They just avoid them the rest of the time that they're at the gym. And I think when you're trying to get better at something, you need to agitate. You need to get in those positions that make you uncomfortable and figure it out. And if you avoid the hard places, then you're never going to get over that.
I think there's a lot of wisdom in what you just said. And, I'm not a pro fighter. I'm not trying to be a pro fighter. I just want to be, like a good martial artist. And I feel grateful that I have the opportunity to for the 200 ways Gilbert Burns to try to fucking choke you and twist you and hurt you.
I can only imagine. That'd be awesome to train with that.
I feel grateful for the opportunity that I'm like, all right, if I, and over time, and Gilbert's fantastic. He's been a good friend. He's so talented. Tremendous respect for Gilbert. I think he's great. I feel so, and despite me being, 60 pounds bigger than him, I got to make 100% effort to, 3 minutes later, he still gets me. But I'm just like, I could last 3 minutes now grappling with Gilbert, if I can last 5 minutes with some of those guys, I feel like great. And it's not even striking. It's not even MMA. That's just grappling.
Yeah.
So if there's a striking component too, I'm going to be in trouble.
Yeah.
So, if I got to grapple with some of the heavyweight guys, I'll do well. But if UFC guys that are currently on the roster, but if I say Andre Arlovsky, good grappler, Sambo champion, etc. I can hold my own. I can do pretty well. It's going to take him a while. He'll get a submission somewhere, but it's going to take him a while. And I get him once in a while. But now that's like friendly grappling. But if I got to go stand up, if we got to go stand up and have a real fight by UFC rules or street fight rules, I'm going to have a bad day.
Yeah, it's a different story.
So anyway, I feel grateful for the opportunity that I can get beat up by some of those people, because if you can last a few minutes with those folks, and if you had to deal with a real life situation, like, it's gonna be just fine. Like, you're literally not gonna break a sweat. It's gonna be, if there's no weapons involved or something, it's gonna be just fine.
Yeah.
So it helped my confidence a lot that when, just in my training, again, I'm not trying to be a professional like you are, so I don't think it's fair to compare those things, but I have more respect for what you've done. Is you spent that's your career, you spent decades on that, etc. But as a hobby, I see sometimes I'm more serious about my hobbies than some people are about like their career or their real life things. And I'm like, of course I want to go work on the things that I suck at, because if I could suck less, then So it's shocking to me once in a while when I hear those things that people want to ignore the parts they probably should focus on, and I think that's a mistake in life.
It's pretty common though. Like it just separates the people who are willing to work hard for the win and the people who are willing to lean on their natural abilities or the things that feel more fun to do. And I started Muay Thai as a hobby, like kickboxing. I started as a hobby, and I think we kind of talked about being introverts earlier and just kind of being forced out of that. But all my life, I was kind of in that position. My first my first actual money-making job, I was drawing caricatures. So I had to, and that was at Six Flags, so I had to be like, hey, you want a caricature? And do a whole whole song and dance, and I hated it. But eventually I realized the more I did it, the more money I made, so I started doing it more. And then same thing happened when, I don't know, I went to art school, and then afterwards there was the recession. I'm old. This is 2008. That's when I graduated.
I'm older, so I remember.
Yeah.
I made a lot of money in 2009, 2010.
Hey, good job. But yeah, for me, I didn't make a lot of money, and that was my sign to do the thing that was calling me, which was fighting. And I got laid off from my animation job. I was bartending. I was training people on Wall Street and stuff, like training stockbrokers in Muay Thai, just like holding pads for them. And I'm like, I'm making a good amount of money just doing these two things and not the thing that I went to school for. So I'll just do that. And I started fighting. I had a few fights. I did a few tournaments. I was winning a lot. And that was around the time that UFC announced that they were doing tough. And so that's why I say I wasn't all in when I went to the tough tryouts. I still considered MMA as a hobby. And I think that's maybe why I became as successful as I did, because I was so passionate about it, just because it was this hobby that I really, really liked, that I really wanted to get good at. And eventually that was my main focus, and that's what ended up paying the bills.
I talked, my first interview today was with Shogun, with Mauricio Rua in the Brazilian language. And he said the same thing. He said, he was, there's no money being a Brazilian fighting. When he was 20 years ago, when he was coming up, there was no money to be made being a fighter in Brazil. They say, man, he just loved it so much, that's what he wanted to do. And just working. And if you could find, I think some people get overexcited about that word, passion. Find something you're passionate about. Well, I mean, if you're passionate about things that keep you poor, then maybe find something else you're passionate about that maybe you can make a nice living at too, or create some real wealth from. But that combination, if there's something you really enjoy like that you have that natural interest or enthusiasm, and there's a path to make some money and live a comfortable life later too. That's the best, That's the best. I just spend a lot of money on fighting. I pay my coaches a lot.
Hey, nice.
made nice training facilities, but that helped my health a lot. It helped me lose weight. It helped me be stronger. It helped me. It's been good for my business, good for my personal happiness, good for my fitness. So I think the martial arts thing is a really fun hobby, and I'm not going to make a living at it, but I think it's great overall. So I see why, people get, I don't want to say addicted to that, but people get, have that passion or enthusiasm that like, man, I'm gonna do this more and more and more. That's what I want to spend a lot of my time doing.
Yeah, man.
I'm just old and my body hurts.
No, dude, I felt so uncomfortable in my own skin before I started doing martial arts.
Yeah.
I was super just shy and meek, and if there was a confrontation, I just avoided it. I didn't want anything to do with it. I would just, belly up, all right, you got it. And it wasn't me, but I just didn't like the threat of a confrontation. It stressed me out. And I felt like I could probably handle myself. I was always scrappy, but at the same time, I just didn't like the idea of being belittled and not having anything to do with it or anything to combat it. And for whatever reason, just learning how to fight took that away. I was working a bar job, and I always tell people this, but I was working a bar job and there were a bunch of bitches there. It was one of those bar jobs where all the waitresses are hot and they all just act like you're wasting their time if you want anything from them. So working that job, it made me tough, but at the same time, I was like, man, these girls are pissing me off, and I can't do anything about it. And so once I started training, like this wasn't the intention, I was just doing it as a workout. But once I started learning how to fight, I was just a lot more confident. Like walking into work, I was just a lot more confident. And then my coworkers liked me more because I showed more of my personality and I was more myself around them. And it just worked out, you know? And I think whenever I see these meek kids come into the gym and they're just like really shy. And one of the craziest examples of this is there was this little kid that came into the gym. He's an Indian kid and had bottle cap glasses. So, you know, he got picked on the school. And he was just the most shy. And he came into the Muay Thai gym with his mom. And his name's Adele Hussein. And eventually he became one of the best fighters in the gym. He was the enforcer. He would green light people who were being dicks. You know what that means. Like when there's a guy being a dick, like beating up the tiny girls or whatever. He was small himself, but he would be the enforcer. Now he's had like a bunch of bare knuckle fights. Like he's just the toughest guy you'd meet now. But to see the difference of him when he was a little 16-year-old, super shy, coming into the gym with his mom, and then him, the man now. It just it's proof of what martial arts can do for people. It just makes you just be able to navigate, makes you be able to move this body that you're in and feel comfortable just being the person that you are.
I think it's great. I think it's there's a lot of overlap with business. I've seen, you know, for the few fighters that want to make that transition, there's so many things that you learn in your career. There's a direct correlate to, you know, any entrepreneurial endeavor or even investing. Like, for instance, how hard do you think it is to train somebody to be like, you know, calm in stressful situations? Like, if a normal person had to go do some of the shit that you do, that you think is normal now. If a normal person had to do some of the things you do, they might shit themselves. They're not prepared to have the, you know, calmness under pressure or the confidence that, you know, hey, I'm well prepared for this. I got this, you know. So you know, in the stock market, it's the same thing. People have some volatility, and they buy things at the wrong time when they're overconfident. Oh, it just keeps going up. So they buy things when something's overpriced, and then it goes down. They sell it when it's underpriced, and then, you know, somebody who knows what they're doing, somebody who spent the time to, like, you know, to study that and understand what's happening. That's the comment I made about buying things in 2009 or making money in 2009. I was buying a lot of these casinos out here. Las Vegas Sands went down to $1.37.
Dang.
And after that, it went up to like $88.
Okay.
And I sold it in the 40s. I was selling it like 42, 44, 46. I didn't know it was going to go to 88, but I was smart enough to buy it at $2. I bought it at $6, $4, $2. But, you know, those type of decisions, it's like a person that can't read financial statements or hasn't done the boring things repetitively to be like, no, this is not as bad as people think it is, and in fact, there's a lot of money to be made here in the future. It's the same things that you're doing. You just trained yourself to be calm in a different environment.
Yeah.
But a person who has done neither of those things to get used to that in the first environment, you know, maybe that takes 10 years or more. But then to translate that into a new environment, you just need to understand, like, oh, this is the same damn thing. I just got to learn to do the little boring things here so I have the same intuitions and the same confidence to make good decisions, you know?
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, a lot of people, yeah, it's what you say. They don't want to do those uncomfortable things, so they're not gonna have that confidence because they haven't been in, you know, those tough spots where a normal person should be nervous because they don't know what they're doing, you know.
Yeah, my one uncomfortable thing I had to do was fight during the whole scare, and I don't know. I wasn't that uncomfortable with it, but I did know that it was something that was a statement. And 2020 was one of my most lucrative years to date. Before that, like, now I'm making more money, obviously, but I fought, I think 3 times in 2020. And after that, I was able to buy my first house.
Nice.
And I remember fighting my first fight in the UFC back after winning the belt in Invicta, and I got a bonus. I lost, but I got a fight night bonus. I fought Jessica Andrade, and it was the most money I had seen at that point because I got like, I don't know, like 30 grand to show and then 50 grand for the fight night bonus. And I'm like, oh man, I got all this money. I'm gonna buy a house, and I live in California, so they're like, okay, come back in a few years. So finally, 2020, I was able to fight enough times. I already had a good income from the year before, and I had enough credit, I had enough capital to actually put a down payment on a house. And it was such a good feeling to be able to just brave that storm, brave the whole scare of fighting in a bubble. The UFC was the first athletic whatever to create a bubble. And I was fighting in that. I fought your girl Claudia, and then I fought your girl Michelle Watterson later. And even with 2 losses, I was able to just rack up the money. I think I got a fight of the night bonus out of that
Yeah,
too.
several, don't you? A performance of the night, fight of the night.
I think I have like 5 now.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I've been putting the
I know
work in.
what the hell you were saying about your losses earlier, but you're doing something right, getting all those bonus checks.
Hey, there you go. There, I guess it wasn't luck after all, but I was working hard for those losses, and got good bonuses from a lot of them. And then this was the first bonus. The last fight was the first bonus I got off of a win, so I was really happy about that. And it felt like I got over a hump that I had created for myself. But I can't knock the path that I've had. And even with all the losses, I've been able to make a lot of money. I've been able to put it away in good ways and build a portfolio, have enough equity that I can retire. Even if I retired now, I think I'd be good. But I'm not ready for that yet, you know?
You're looking real good. I said it at least 3 times, where you're looking really good in your last fight. You got
Thanks.
a lot of energy. You look like you came there to win, and you did. And
Yeah.
I thought you're looking sharp.
Yeah, I'm just excited to see what's next. My ultimate goal is to win the belt so I can get a role in a movie.
All right.
That's the ultimate, because I feel like the only people who really transition into Hollywood are ex-champions.
You like to be around Hollywood people?
I like movies.
Yeah.
I like sci-fi. I like, the whole alien backstory, right? With my grandparents.
No,
Or my
I'm sorry.
grandfather. Oh, you never heard of that? Barney Hill, he's a famous alien abductee. And I always say he was the first Black man to be abducted by aliens. But he got abducted in the 60s, I believe, with his wife Betty. And all the UFO nerds out there, they are all super hip to the story. And so when I went on Joe Rogan before, and I totally forgot to tell him that. So when we were leaving, I was like, oh, you know who Barney Hill is, right? And he's like, oh, the alien abductee, of course. And I'm like, oh, that's my grandfather. And he's like, what? So I've always been into sci-fi since I was a kid. I always wanted to be some sort of Sigourney Weaver character in Aliens or something like that. And
Sincere question, and not a negative question, but sincere question. You think this is a real thing, the alien abductee thing?
I mean, something happened.
First of all, I totally am willing to believe in aliens. I've never seen an alien.
Yeah.
But you look at, they say there's like a billion stars out there. It's 18 zeros, And then later they revised that, so 22 zeros. I don't know what the hell that number is. A trillion has 12 zeros, and this has 10 extra zeros. So it'd be like 10 billion trillion, 22 zeros after a number. Stars. And just with our little star, we call it the sun, we got, 9 planets and a lot of moons orbiting that. And I think of the diversity of life on Earth, of like, you see, here we are, that there's like an elephant and a hippo and a cheetah and, crazy bugs and fish and all sorts, there's such a wide array of things that are alive. that I think to myself, if there's that many sources of light or heat energy from various stars, then whatever might be orbiting around them, it seems like statistically quite probable to me, like, yeah, probably there's some other stuff living out there somewhere.
There has
Maybe
to
a
be.
whole bunch of it, I don't know.
Yeah, mathematically there has to be, I feel like.
I think that's true.
But to think that they made contact, I think that's where a lot of people are like, oh, I don't know about that. To think that the typical Hollywood alien or the thing from the 50s, the flying saucers and things existed, I think that's where people start to get skeptical. But man, we're discovering new species every day. We're discovering new tiny bacteria existing in things every day. And it is like, smaller and smaller atoms. To think that there's so much that we're discovering on our planet, but there's nothing out there seems a little
I'm with you.
convoluted.
So on that part, I never seen it. Either there's aliens living among us so commonly that I don't know that that's an alien. Maybe we're the aliens. Maybe weirdos like you and I.
I could be.
But to think that that this is the only, there's such an array of things here and nothing's out there, I think that's extremely small probability. So I think
I think it's kind of
almost certainly
arrogant.
other things. I agree.
Yeah.
I think there's almost certainly other things living in, maybe in this galaxy, maybe even Mars. They find water on Mars or where water used to be on Mars. And
Yeah.
all right, so life can only exist here. It seems improbable. But and then the making contact thing is like, there's actually I have a hard time sorting through it because you don't know what's true and not true with the government,
Mm-hmm.
But there's a lot of people out there that have said they've seen this or they've seen that, and it looks like there's been some government stuff released, like this was Area 51.
Yeah,
and,
the Blue Book
and,
project.
And it seems like there's a lot of government suppression of things from that era that you're talking about, 50s, 60s, where credible scientists said that they've seen things that were in these compounds, like government compounds, that they had a live alien, at least one situation of a live alien that they had in various spaceship or whatnot. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know, but I really don't trust the government either, So
Yeah. Well, you ever talk to like a Air Force guy?
yeah, of course.
I feel like every Air Force guy I've talked to where I asked them that question, if they've seen something and they didn't know what it was, they're like, yeah. But, you can't really come out and say it.
I flew a couple million miles, and once in a while I look out the window.
Eventually you're going to see some weird shit out there, and they can't say anything about it because it's confidential. But I can understand not wanting to tell people about it because then what,
Yeah, I don't know, but I'm open-minded about it. So I believe in aliens more than I believe in luck.
Oh, wow.
You have a podcast and some other things going on yourself. Where do folks find you? They're interested in knowing more about Angela Hill.
I have a podcast called Two Straws. It's with my teammate and bestie, Jessica Penne. She's also a strawweight in the UFC. And we're on YouTube. And then my gym is called SoCal Fight Collective. We're out in San Diego. And we're kind of starting, we're like, I guess you could call it Alliance MMA Junior. But all the coaches that we're coaching there, a lot of the fighters that we're fighting out of Alliance MMA are all collecting there and forming their own team. So it's been pretty good so far.
Yeah, I really enjoyed getting to know you a bit more. I appreciate you making time to come through here. I thought she looked really good in her last fight. I think she got some more wins left in there for sure.
Some more luck brewing.
Tail it.
It's like, edit it out.
Hard-earned victories.
Yes.
Hard-earned victories.
Very hard-earned.
How old were you when you started training?
24. I did my first Muay Thai class.
So only 15 years of hard work before she got so lucky.
That's it. That's all it takes.
Thank you so much for coming through.
Thank you.
Respect.
You watch this video all the way through, and that tells me you're dedicated to learning more and earning far above average outcomes in your life. Congratulations for that. But now it's time to take action. If you could have earned those results by yourself, you would have done it already. My head coach has opened up a few spots on his high-demand calendar for an in-person, one-on-one strategy session to help you. On this call, we'll give you the pragmatic advice that you can implement tonight to get laser-focused on the right metrics and leave mediocrity far behind in your past. Click that link right now in the description below and apply for your call immediately. Do it now.